So let's get into what the party did last week, because it ended in a pretty wild spot, I would say. At least it ended in an interesting spot for the players. So last week, they had arrived in town. They'd, as you will recall, kind of TPK. Not quite. There wasn't any combat this session, which some of my players might have been annoyed about. I'm not entirely sure. But players arrived in town, and they had started to try to get a lay of the land, which for Eve included flirting up a priest of Salamander. That, for the record, could have been their key across this water gap. And what was the demand? I see. So started flirting up that priest, and then brought him to the docks for a nice chat, and then slit his throat and pushed him in the water. So that is where we ended off the week prior, and that was the opening session this week of someone discovering the body and basically causing a ruckus. Although less of a formalized ruckus than it might cause in, say, Eden or another town, because this army is made up of a bunch of bandits and stuff. That's part of what's going on here. It's at least half the army is bandits and thieves and thugs. So there's kind of a lot of scoundrels around, and finding a single person who might have slit the priest's throat is not that easy. So there was potential for the party to run into the person investigating, but it didn't happen. What happened instead, we opened up after that. Ludwig had met a goblin friend, Gerg, I believe his name was. Is either Gerg or Gert. I think it's Gerg. Gerg Spearshake, a fellow goblin who was kind of a golemancer. He was trying to make a fire golem, a pure fire golem in particular, which is, he was finding some difficulty, as it's hard for fire to hold a single continuous physical shape, as it turns out. And Ludwig had said, hey, I have this Everburning Ember that happens to be shockingly similar to the one that the Burning Man had that I was just talking to you about. I have that for some reason. So, why did it need to come to slitting the man's throat? I think Eve has a quota. So yeah, Ludwig went, talked to his goblin friend, and goblin friend had set up kind of a makeshift workshop out on the beach where nothing was probably going to set on fire. And he had a golem control orb sphere, which is something Ludwig needs for his synthetic friend that they recovered from the temple in Orlean. They didn't end up acquiring that, but he then took out the Everburning Ember from the Burning Man, the Devil Ember, and they kind of put them together, cast the activation spell, basically, and Golem lit up, and it was able to, there's a big pillar of fire. Golem was able to hold its form, which was a surprise to the goblin, to Gerg. But then when they tried to give this golem commands, it would not listen to the commands, and there was kind of a dark aura, a dark bit of flame near the core, near where the ember was. I guess it was in the head. That's where it was. Well, that's kind of the question with a king, I guess. I don't know. It's basically an elemental with a thing in it. Is what it turns out. And yeah, so there was this black fire in the head. They tried to give the golem commands, and it would not listen to them. It was not having it. And then they let's see. They tried to command it to take the ember out of its head, and it brought its hand up to its head, touched it, and then the black fire started to spread down the arm. And they're okay, crap, what do we do? Let's see. And Ludwig just tossed a frost bomb at it. And it knocked the ember, it extinguished the head of the golem for a moment, not a minute, for a fraction of a second, and it knocked the ember away onto the sand. And the golem was able to hold its form for another couple of seconds. After that, like, the ember was gone, the black corruption of the fire was gone, the golem held its form, and then it just destabilized and exploded. So that was the end of that. Solus also showed up for the end of that, but he mostly watched from the bushes. So they averted some disaster there. They got rid of the potential fire golem enemy. But friend Goblin learned that it was like possible for the fire golem to hold its form, and Ludwig figured some stuff out, not hard facts, but figured out some stuff about the Everburning Ember. So he was happy about that. He was like, this was a productive day, even though we almost created a devil fire. But that kind of ended the intro sequence there. Basically, Ludwig and this goblin, they were like, all right, well, that happened. Let's keep in contact. Maybe we can do something like this again sometime. And Solus was like, definitely not. And the other two were like, whatever, we'll be in touch. Then they went back to camp. They all reconvened a little bit. Eve was then trying to figure out a way across. Basically, they needed to get from the town at the end of this peninsula to Salamander's temple on this island. And they ended up pursuing two different tracks here. Solus went off. He'd spent the previous night, drinking with some soldiers of Salamander that he'd made friends with. He went to talk to them. Basically said, hey, let me talk to your boss. They were like, okay, that's sure, why not? Okay, we'll bring you to our, all right, yeah, rolled high on charisma checks, as the party does. So they went to talk to the person in charge of, like, the, kind of like the guard in the town, basically, who was going to march after Burning Man, but kind of got relegated to staying in town and handling this stuff now that Burning Man was dead, and that original plan fell through. So talk to him. He was very cranky, wasn't having any of it, but Solus, again, rolled very well in saying, like, he caught a glimpse of Zima in the market just randomly in the morning. I don't remember what brought about the roll, but he was, like, trying to look for something in particular, and I was like, well, you don't find that, but here, you caught sight of this gnome scout for brass. He's, like, working for the rival mercenary company. It's like, you catch sight of her. She's looking around. She doesn't spot you yet. And he was like, okay, well, I'm going to try to get out of there. And rolled, like, stealth to sneak away, basically, instead of talking to Zima, and rolled very poorly. Zima definitely, like, spotted him. But, yeah, he's trying to turn around this situation. Goes and talks to the commander, being like, hey, I saw this scout, but I need to talk to someone higher than you. It's above your pay grade. He's like, what? I don't know. That sounds like bullshit, but sorry. One moment. I'll be right back. Okay, sorry about that. So this is above your pay grade. I need to talk to someone more important than you to give you this information. And he was like, he pressed the issue a little bit, but Solus rolled highly in deception, and then also in diplomacy, to, like, successfully trick him that it was above, it was very important, and also convince him that he needed to talk to someone, like, actually in charge of the army. So the commander begrudgingly was like, all right, fine, I'll get a boat. I'll bring you across to the generals, and you can talk to them about it, and then I'll be done with it. Solus at this point was like, oh shoot, that's not actually, I didn't know they were across the water. I don't want to go across without my party, but we'll see what happens. So he went with that. And the rest of the party pursued a different angle. Eve had met an aspiring priestess whose friend she murdered. Met this girl who wanted to become a priestess of Salamander, convinced her to, like, that Eve was basically her bodyguard, and would keep her safe after her friend died. which is wild. What gods has the party met so far? I'll get to that towards the end, but they've only really met one, I guess. Um, yeah. So they have this priestess. She convinced her that she would be her bodyguard, and that she had a collection of friends that she had also hired to help out, and that she wouldn't let this vile assassin from Eden get to her. And that also worked. She basically still only did a cross, talked to another priest who had like known her cleric friend, and procured a boat, and like basically said she felt like she was in danger and she would be much safer on the Simmering Isle. And so she got a boat through this cleric friend. The party met up with her and him, and he took them across after grilling the party a little bit, being like, "Who are you? Where are you from? Why are you helping my friend?" And Eve was like, "Well, she showed me kindness when I was new in town, and I'm just returning the favor." And it's like, okay, that makes sense. Again, high rolls all around for this. And yeah, they got in a boat, they went across. Solus and the rest of the party ended up arriving at about the same time, although they stayed split up for a time. Solus talked to the generals. The party went up to the temple to see Salamander, to like sleep there. Solus basically convinced. He didn't even need to convince them. He just told the generals, "Hey, Brass is coming. He's probably coming around this way. He's going to be a big problem for you. You should like mobilize some forces to take care of him." And they were like, "Okay, well, all right." They were convinced to. I don't even remember if they were convinced or if they just like had a kind of conversation with while Silvus was around. But they were like, "All right, well, this will be easier if we get citizens across. We'll evacuate some citizens in the boats, what we can before Brass arrives, and then we'll like mobilize a defense in the town." And at that point, Solus just kind of left and was like, "All right, that sounds good. Good job. Good, do that. Bring any forces you have here over there." And they were like, "We have plenty of no, no, we're not going to do that. We have plenty of forces on land. We need some backup forces here in case they get through. That's no, we're not going to do that." Solus like shrugged. Solus left, went up the hill to the temple, found that the party was already there, and it ended on. I had everyone make a will saving throw. All right, let's back up a little bit. So they got here. They see that there's people just all over the place, and that maybe just killing Salamander won't be like Salamander isn't just alone in a room like Explicita was. Oh crap moment? Yeah, exactly. So they were like, shoot, how do we deal with this? And they thought of a couple of things, some of which may or may not work. Oh, I'm supposed to have the arc spoilers thing up. I'm so bad at this. Jeez. Okay. So they had a couple ideas. One was like, I guess, evacuating people from the temple because Brass was coming. So they were gonna try to sabotage some boats in the next morning. Just try to convince people that like imminent danger was here and that they need to evacuate. I don't think they realize that this is like the citadel, right? This is the keep. Basically, this is the most defensible place on the island. So like, if they convince people to retreat, probably they'll retreat here, you know? So I don't know if I should change it up to like reward their strategy, but kind of I think that just I don't know. Yeah, I think this is like the safest place to be in like the enemy citizens' mind, and also that like yeah, a bunch of these people are soldiers and shamans who will like fight to defend Salamander anyway. They're not like regular citizens. There's plenty of those around, but a lot of the people marked on the map are more than that. So yeah, we'll kind of see how that works out, I guess. I'll probably. I might try to signal that try to subtly signal at the start of the session that they're going to like spark people to gather here. Maybe like I'll just have, you know, the first wave of citizens came across and they'll be like carrying their stuff to the temple, basically. So, I could just stay quiet. You're right. I don't think I'm not gonna make a big deal out of it. Just like in the opening, in my experience, it's always better to blindside the players with this sort of thing. That's fair. That's fair. Would it be too much, do you think, if I'm just like, you guys wake up, you see what appears to be citizens carrying like bedrolls into the temple. It's like more crowded than you guys when you guys arrived, and kind of just end that part there. Like, is that too much of a hint? Like, I feel like that's fair, personally. Sounds like RP to me. Yeah, yeah. I'm not gonna like unless you're talking about their lapse of thought, in which case, also correct. But it was also getting towards the end of the session when they came up with this plan, so I don't know. I'm not going to overtly be like, this is a bad idea, but I might, I'll just say that it's like, it's more crowded. There are some citizens with like bedrolls and like belongings, important belongings who have arrived since he went to bed. That'll kind of be it. Wither, to answer your question, they've only, I guess now they've technically met two gods. They haven't like talked to this one, but they've met Explicita. They've met a paladin, I think it was, and like a barbarian worshipping the guardian harpy lady. And they met Explicita Defilis, and that's kind of it. Really. So they've met people adjacent to gods like Burning Man, but that's about it. And yeah, we ended the session. I was like, as you're going to bed, why don't you all give me will saving throws? And everyone succeeded except Eve, which is hilarious. Sonus used his hero point right at the end to actually save. He rolled an 11 and then switched it to a 25. Hero points are busted, and like my players always have them for important roleplay stuff. Anyway. So, yeah. So everyone saved but Eve. Eve was shaken, and I told everyone that you have this feeling you're overcome by like an aura. You know that the gap of power between you and Salamander is bigger than the gap between, like, this is far stronger than the feeling you got from Explicita in terms of just their presence, their like divine aura, however you want to call it. And they were like, oh, good, great, that's fun. And that was where we left it. I was like, you go to bed with that feeling. Some of you sleep well. Eve is shaken. So, and that's where we called it. Yeah. So I really enjoyed the session. It was obviously very roleplay heavy. It was like quite a bit of lore in there. They were asking a lot of questions about like what worshippers of Salamander care about. There's a lot of talk about like, basically they were like, Eden is the tower, the pillar of the old ways, and Salamander is going to burn it down. Like, this is the one thing. Eden is the one thing from the old world that was spared, and it won't be spared any longer, and we'll move to a new future once Eden is reborn, basically. And so there was a lot of that. There was a little bit of like, yeah, but what does Salamander actually care about? And that was just Adam created Salamander. Salamander wants to get rid of what Adam built. There's like some kind of animosity there, to say the least. Oh, the other thing I guess I should say is that Ludwig strongly wants to talk to Salamander, and yeah, they're gonna try to talk to Salamander first and then go to the fighting, and I don't know how that's gonna go. Like, talking to him's a good idea, but probably not for the reasons Ludwig is thinking. Like, they're probably not gonna buddy up with Salamander, most likely. But there's some ways they could, you know, gods have some amount of hubris, probably. So, like, they could figure out a way to be like, yo, followers don't interfere. I will deal with these fools myself, you know? So they might goad him if they're in, you know, if they have the presence of mind to do so. But that was not in their plan at all when they were talking before, so it might not happen that way. We'll see. I'm really interested to see how that conversation will go. Anytime my players have talked to an NPC in a serious situation like this, it's gone wildly different from what I expected. So I expect this will be the same. But since it always goes wildly different from what I expect, maybe that means it won't be the same at all, and it'll like they'll be like, "Hey, be our friend," and then we'll say no, and then it'll be like, "Fine, time to fight," and that'll be all the drama for it. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Anyway, that was the recap. I think that about catches y'all up to where we are now, and we'll continue this story tomorrow. And for now, I'm going to take a break, and we'll talk about if Salamander needs any cleaning up, what kind of loot he should give the players, because I did not finish making that, of course. I have some ideas. And yeah. Then I'll be back after a break. Let's see. Maybe Salamander doesn't want to, maybe he's compelled to, like, be friends. Is that what we're talking about? Probably not. We'll see what kind of reasoning they use, right? Probably too late to go with that spin and make it stick well, though, yeah. Like a Vader and Anakin moment? Which Vader and Anakin moment? I need more water. I've drank like all this since I started streaming. It kinda... Sorry, you probably have another message coming. I'll be patient. Oh, while we're here, while we're finishing this up, join the light side moment. Okay, yeah. Oh, I see. They would need a good... like, something pretty dire to compel him to do that, I think. Salamander is Ludwig's father. But, other than that, Lynn, my lovely roommate, made a new couple of emotes that have replaced the previous one. So we have, there's VG Very Happy, which is the same as before, but it's better. It's better than my hand drawn one. So that's new. And then there's VG Very Blue, which is, you know, blue screen of death. So that's the thing. What if you cast Atonement on a god? I think they probably have an immunity, is what happens. Not to go with a boring answer. So I also added a couple of emotes to the higher tier ones, but I feel bad showing them off. That feels weird to me. So I don't know. I'll just do it. It's fine. I made some silly edits of what Lynn sent. So I made VG Very Golden, which is just the same, but it's gold. Got him. And VG Very Haphazard, which is VG Very Happy, but upside down, and I thought the name was cute. So anyway, now I'm going to go take a break. Now that we're done with that, I'll be back with prep in a moment. So see you soon. I'm going to just refill water and yeah.